Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Omnia Performance Podcast, where we are going to debrief the Goggins 4x4x96
Bloody hell.
challenge. So 4 miles every 4 hours for 4 days, playing on the Goggins challenge of 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours, which I've been asked plenty of times to do online, but I've never really been that interested in doing. So I decided to do what I've done a lot of recently, and double it and give it to the next person. So it's foolish, to say the least. But what is also foolish is if you haven't yet followed or subscribed on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, please do make sure to check out the website. Please do make sure to share this episode or an episode previously with a friend, and check us out on YouTube, as well as social media, where we will chuck up loads of other stuff. And we'll be doing a lot more clips and shorts off the back of the podcast. I'm from South Africa now, off the back of the podcast very soon, as we've actually got such a backlog of things to discuss that we thought it would be wise to do so. So with that admin out of the way, I'm going to hand over to Big Johnny Payne.
Big Johnny Payne, I'm here. Hi. I feel like that'd be lovely if you had your headphones in. That was good.
R.I.P. headphone users.
Yep.
I'm dead. I'm a headphone user. I'm dead.
Nobody can see this until we put it up online, but what I've got in front of me are a list of questions from, I think it was on Omnia and on your own Instagram, where you asked...
yeah, I think so.
Who's got questions? We're going to record a podcast and just go through some questions. So that's what we're going to do today. Rather than just you and I chatting, I'm going to read some questions, and... these are from this half of this battle here is going to be reading people's names. I think we'll try.
Try. It's always fun to try.
Where I can't, I'll make it up.
Until you get to someone that's just utterly ridiculous and you just make a fool of yourself.
Yeah. The other thing to point out here is these aren't in any particular order. So rather than us having a chronological beginning through end, because I haven't managed to sort through them that quickly, we'll just rattle through them, shall we, mate?
Yeah. Let's fire away.
Okay. So. Peran.Tustin has said, so exactly opposite of the chronological idea, is what did you do post-recovery for the event? Anything in particular? So I guess the question is, how did you recover from it? And did you have any particular protocols?
So I got on a plane to Los Angeles.
I was just thinking, the worst possible recovery.
Yeah. In an ideal world, I wouldn't have done that, but within the context of when I did it, that is what I did. So
what was your timeline from 96?
So we started on, so I didn't set myself up very well either. So 1st of February, I flew up and down to London for a full day of workshops with the Modern Mind at a school in Surrey. I then started on, that was the Wednesday, so the 1st. On the 2nd, I started the Goggins 4x4x96 at 4 p.m. and went all the way through to Monday at about 1 p.m. after the midday run. Then got home, frantically packed last minute for a month overseas, and then at 8:30 the following morning flew to London to then fly to Los Angeles. So essentially the timeline we're working to is I had a Domino's on Monday night. I made sure to adequately hydrate and psychologically calm down by knowing that I was packed to go away. And then over the next couple of days, I just made sure to stay on top of that, ate like a pig, if I'm going to be self-critical a little bit.
Good protocol, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Post something like that.
Yeah.
Although...
to a point.
Yeah, we can get into a little bit of that, because this is not like an ultra.
No, we will get into that, essentially. So essentially, there was absolutely zero recovery protocol, other than afterwards, I didn't really train with any intensity for a little while, and I kept an eye on my weight recovery so I could recalibrate my sleeping pattern and keep an eye on how I responded to any outputs in training the week or so afterwards, in case I was tanking myself by still being in a massive state of fatigue. So do as I say, not as I do. You were probably expecting a more informative answer there.
Well, protocol-wise, you did as much as you could based on the fact that you had an extraordinarily hectic...
And most importantly, I didn't do a whole load of heebie-jeebie 1% bullshit and try and sell it to you online.
Yeah, just ate a lot, tried to sleep where you could, and blah, blah, blah. Just the usual good common sense stuff. Okay, question 2 from Anzi Kumar. We're going to pretend this is how people want it pronounced. Anyway, maybe non-related, but did you feel cold at any point? Did you always have shorts on? I suppose we could reframe that as a larger question, which would be what kind of issues did the weather changing throughout the day, stroke night, over the course of those 4 days throw at you? Did you change your clothes up? Or did you, it's a 4 mile run.
Yeah, big time. So, so for context, I am a former rugby player who grew up in Scotland, which means that I will always wear shorts.
Weird.
So that's just the thing that's been embedded into me from a young age. I think there's pictures of me online at the top of Ben Nevis in the snow in shorts.
Well, I'm next to you in 3 pairs of jeans and some dungarees, some salopettes, and big boots. Summer on a summer's day.
Dungarees. Anyway, my legs don't really get cold, to be quite honest. My ears and my hands are my measures of cold. My hands are quite weak, actually, when it comes to the cold. I knew you'd laugh there, because I knew you'd associate hands with manliness. And if I have weak hands, I'm therefore an inferior being to you. I know how your head works, you swine.
Facts, isn't it?
Anyway, so I alternated between long sleeve t-shirts and having a windbreaker and then a mid layer on, and that was it. And the only other thing I changed was whether I had a cap or a beanie on. So I essentially had a beanie on overnight and a cap on the rest of the time, and that kept me okay, because I was essentially out the front door, moving, and then back indoors.
The good thing with it being a 4 mile run each time is, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, if you'd gotten it a little wrong, you were bloody cold during one of the runs, you go, right, next time I'm going to put extra on. So it's not something that's different if you're out doing an ultra and you found yourself, oh shit, I've packed wrong. This could be adjusted.
Yes, and the main thing with the ultra comparison is you're not stopping. So if you sweat through, you go inside, you take the clothes off, you put them in the pile of washing, you get in the shower, and then you go again.
Yeah.
Whereas in an ultra, if you sweat through and it's -5 overnight, as has happened to me on a 100 miler before, if you stop because you're a little bit wet, damp, moist. How uncomfortable are you?
Very. Oh,
R.I.P.
More
headphone
uncomfortable
users.
than you think I should be.
Then you immediately get freezing.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider. But in terms of, we'll just cover clothing rotation and things here. I took the attitude of having as much as I possibly could so that I took away the guesswork. We did have access to turnover facilities in terms of we had a washing machine that was a washer dryer. So I took stuff knowing that we could use that on sort of day 3, day 4 if needed. I started with the plan of using the same clothes and essentially not showering until every second run. But then I was doing 2 rounds of 4 miles in the same clothing, and then I was putting it in the wash pile. But I started showering after every run after the first 4 runs because I felt a bit grubby and salty and my skin felt irritated, and I just wanted to be as comfortable as possible. So I think the important point here is, no, I didn't get cold because I had the facilities available to me to manage it. I had a strategy that allowed me to be able to make changes if I did get cold. But I mean, it's important to mention when I started running at 4 in the morning, it was about -1, -2. But as soon as I started moving and my heart rate got up to 140 plus, I was fine. So the first minute, 90 seconds, it was like, oh, I don't like this. But when you've done it enough times, you've got faith that you will warm up. Yeah. And it's the old Royal Marine saying, be bold, start cold. And that was the attitude I took. I made sure to have everything I needed if there were alternatives. I never needed to put gloves on. I was a bit cold overnight on some when it was about -3. But 4 miles isn't long enough period of time for my hands to be irretrievably freezing. So, yeah, essentially that's that.
Fair. The next one is, it reads as a question, but I think it's an excellent suggestion. This is from Dragon Door 123456, who says, will you be drinking 4 standard drinks per 4 questions for up to 96 questions?
Jonny and I are going for dinner and pints after this, and we will find out.
We can accumulate that number and then come back to
So
that.
what is it?
4 standard drinks per 4 questions for up to, so it's
well, no.
a drink a question.
No, if we'd better prepared for this, then yes, I could have killed myself with alcohol poisoning.
Alcohol pops.
Yeah,
I've been kill myself with alcohol.
I'm slurring my words. Essentially, yes, I could have inadvertently killed myself via alcohol poisoning by playing your silly, dangerous game, sir. Dragon Door, you are clearly the door to hell.
Dragon Door 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pints.
Oh, okay, I see. So what would it have actually been? 4 standard drinks. So it would have been 4 pints every 4 questions for 96 questions. So essentially, answer 96 questions, drink 96 standard drinks.
Yep.
I think you could manage that.
I'm pretty confident I could do it. Let's try. We'll come back to you in podcast number 4 from now and see if I'm still alive.
Okay, there we go. That was very clear. I'm glad we covered that question.
So we've already had the how did you recover post-event, but we've got how did you recover in between each 4 mile run? That's an interesting question, I think, because there's kind of a turnover time, isn't there, of 4 hours. Less your running time.
So strategy going into it was sleep overnight, don't sleep during the day. Try and keep some sort of rhythm, and whilst it's a massively interrupted rhythm, it still means that I had some sort of sleep-wake cycle and light-dark cycle. So biologically speaking, I wasn't playing around with myself too much. Terrible choice of words.
Except at night.
Anyway, there's no coming back from that. So we're going to move on. But essentially, I thought that I would want to sleep from the 8 till 12, the 12 till 4, and the 4 till 8. But I found that in the 8 till 12s, I wasn't actually tired enough to sleep. I was a bit tired, but it wasn't like sleepy tired. So I was sleeping in the 12 till 4 and the 4 till 8 in terms of recovery during. So that was the focused sleep allocations. And we'll talk on how that developed as time went on shortly. But during the day, my brief was essentially get in, get some water and a little bit of food on board, whether that was a banana, a cookie, a Squares bar, some Velo Forte chews, or a small bowl of cereal as I'm sipping some water, into the shower, do my admin, so get the clothes by the washing machine, etc., etc., get my clothes laid out, ready to go for the next one, so there's no guesswork when we're 2.5 hours later and it's time to go, the alarms are going off. And then I would settle into either some work or watching the rugby, as I found myself doing on the Saturday afternoon, and made sure that I had food and fluids accessible and went through them as I did. And the key point is I was eating things that were normal, things that I'd normally eat, in no more, I mean, higher quantities than usual, obviously, because my expenditure was there, but not enough at any one time that I was going to make myself feel bloated or sluggish. It wasn't like a curry and 10 pints with lads. It was like a big meal, but not so big a meal I would still be digesting it and feel sluggish going to the next run that was only about 3 hours away at this point. And I did find that those gaps in the daytime felt very, very long. But I actually developed a bit of a morning routine on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Monday, where we were staying. There was a Soderbergh bakery on the corner, and on the Saturday morning, I went for a latte and a Swedish pastry. And
that's made me giggle, I don't know why. So particularly middle class, isn't it? Rather than I would have gone for a black coffee and hopefully a beer. I went to sorry man, carry on.
It's a Swedish bakery, that's all they serve. So I essentially went on day one, got myself one of those, really enjoyed the process of being in a new environment and having a coffee stop. And then did that every morning and really, really looked forward to it. That was what was getting me through the night.
You're a big fan of routine though, aren't you?
I am, big time.
That's quite good. Makes sense to hear you say that. I didn't know you'd done that. Makes sense though.
Mate, it was integral. I was fucking loving it. Like I was standing in the queue.
Pinning yourself down to certain little kind of movements and factors, and that one's a positive one. Job done.
Yeah, massive. It genuinely got me through the night. And I mean, they're a very successful bakery in Edinburgh, don't get me wrong. But the thrill I got from enjoying that latte and that Swedish pastry was quite phenomenal. So that was that. And then in terms of, I mean, again, you might be expecting I was in and out of an ice bath in the bath that we'd booked so that we had access to all that stuff. I was making sure that I had infrared saunas around me and bloody Normatec boots on to my eyeballs and all of that. I just wanted to keep things as simple as possible, keep on top of fluids, keep on top of food, keep on top of pacing, keep on top of admin, keep myself happy and sane, alongside keeping on top of workload and filming the whole thing. Just do that.
It's not much to ask, is it?
Yeah, but then again, adding in the minute details like, oh, have I got my infrared lamp? Fucking, I could not be arsed with the tiredness and all that stuff and the worry that went with it. So essentially,
all the joking aside, it's the fact that you've kind of got yourself in for a nice coffee and a nice bit of food, and you found somewhere you like to go, you like the process, you like that's as much.
I don't want to sound cynical, but
no, I like it.
Essentially, the premise of the challenge is to put yourself in a miserable position and to suffer through it. So, for me to try and 1% my way to feeling 1% less shit when there was no way I wasn't going to feel shit at all times, it's futile to worry about the small details when you can't get the big details right. So I essentially executed the basics with ruthless efficiency and made sure to enjoy the gaps as they came. And I actually found that the gaps between runs during the day felt like a really long time. And the one indulgence I did have was a few non-alcoholic beers with a butter burger, which is a big fat chicken burger. I didn't get fries because I felt that would have been the big meal that I was keen to avoid and would make me a bit bloated. But I got a sort of fried chicken burger, which was delicious, phenomenal in fact. And I had that with a rugby, so it felt like a pretty normal Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And that was that. Other than that, I was just eating consistently, drinking consistently, maintaining electrolytes. And what I did do, actually worth mentioning from a sleep point of view, is on night 2 decided that if I was focusing on eating during the night as well as much as I was during the day, it was interrupting my digestion, and that was therefore interrupting my sleep. So I viewed the sleep time as focusing on sleep, so I only drank a little bit and only ate a little bit before I went to bed when I came in, so that I was maximizing the sleep. So that meant that when I was finishing the 8 a.m. run, I did feel a little bit more sluggish and bonky than I otherwise would, but then I had a full day to replenish carbs and electrolytes and everything as it went. So I took the decision to reduce my food intake to improve my recovery coming from the sleep and improve my overall quality of sleep. So minimize friction to maximize sleep was the overnight protocol, and then the rest of the time was essentially execute the basics with ruthless efficiency, and that's that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. LP27 __. Did Goggins contact you afterwards, or did you maybe contact him beforehand? Have you had any I'm adding this extra bit. Have you had any contact with Mr. David Goggins?
I have not, no, and I wouldn't expect it in any way. This is not me trying to reach out for his attention. This was me reinventing a fun challenge that a lot of people have asked me to do, and I think has a very useful purpose created by the man himself, who I think has said himself he doesn't like spending much time on social media and would rather keep himself to himself. So all power to him, and I'm in no way expecting a response. This is no way a challenge to Goggins. This is not a point scoring thing. It's more a case of
it's just a nice framework to
it's essentially people have experienced the 4x48. A lot of people have done it. A lot of people search for it online. I wanted to explore it in a new way through the lens of my own experience and bring that story to life. Goggins is the one that created the 4x4x48, so his name is attached to it. But this is in no way me being like, "Ooh, look at me doubling it. I'm pushing the boat out and all this stuff." It's more just how much did the tiredness compound over time? Can we make a cool video about it? And I finally now have the experience to be able to answer the questions that I get about the 4x48 on a regular basis, because we have a lot of people come to us saying they want to do it. I get a lot of DMs from people saying, "I'm doing it in a few weeks with friends. Do you have any advice?" And obviously I've had a theoretical, strategic overview of it based on what it is.
We've taken quite a few people through it.
Yeah.
But it's nice, as you say.
Done it now.
Yeah. What are you thinking about as the challenge gets as you get further and further into the challenge? This is from Chris Chavez Cronin. What keeps you going? So
Swedish pastries.
Yes, yeah. We kind of have covered a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
For you, routine, I know would keep you going, but is that something you leaned in on? Is okay if I factor this in, if I make sure that you've established a lot of different parameters, of different ways of connecting with the process. Is that what kept you going, or did you? Okay, this is me casting my own opinion across it. I wasn't there and haven't done this, but I would think that you'd be less inclined to find yourself in those particularly dark places during this than you might find yourself thinking, "Oh God, I'm out of routine. That's going to scupper this." It would be less. Do you know where I'm driving that? On a long ultra, something like you've done 100 miles longer.
So the dark place thing, I didn't get there.
No, because that was my expectation that you wouldn't get there. Not because it's not a tough challenge, but because
you have break points.
There's breaks. You can take time out of it and reset.
Comfortable breaks as well.
But I think that for you personally, if you had taken time out for a comfortable reset and something untoward had happened, I don't know, making something up, there had been a flood in the bloody place, or one of your shoes went missing, or you couldn't get that particular Danish or something like that, you might have found yourself
Swedish, Johnny, not Danish, completely different nations.
You might have found yourself then on the back foot trying to re-establish routine, but that would be different, in my opinion, than trying to cope with a degradation of physical output.
Yeah, I think the core point here is it's not like a normal ultra, and I tried to establish a predictable routine within the context of this event itself as I could, and what drew me through it, what got me getting through the miles, what had me getting through the miles was reps and sets. So 4 sets, 4 days, and then a rep. It was a single. Oh fuck, I've got to sleep. I've got to get through the night. Oh no, but I've got that pastry and that latte waiting for me in the morning. But to be honest, what got me through it was knowing that I was getting closer to the end and that I was enjoying the exploration of it to some degree. Again, it's an experience thing. It's kind of more. It's one more string in the bow that means I've lived through something and now have a perception on what is entailed. But there was no real profound reflection that came with this. I never found myself in that reflective meeting yourself state of mind that you find yourself in ultras or the double, anything like that. I think the sleep, the breaks, the recovery, the staggeredness of it made it a very different challenge. I've experienced sleep deprivation and have a pretty high tolerance for getting up at stupid o'clock if it is required to get somewhere. So I've experienced a lot of the things before, but essentially it's a challenge in inconvenience, resolve, discipline, and execution.
Yeah.
Rather than it is running. So I would dress it up as something profound, but essentially my profundity comes from ultra endurance. This was merely a task in executing the plan.
So if you had to do it again, what would you do differently? That's from Ravalex.
I would. There's not much to change.
No. From any feedback that you've given me, it doesn't seem like there would be much you would.
I think maybe I would have had a few alternative routes plotted and planned to remove any guesswork, because I did get a bit bored of doing the laps. But the reason we had the laps was to set it up so it was easy to film. It was predictable.
Yeah.
I did find myself running out towards Murrayfield Stadium and back at one point. I did that on
just maybe a bit of variety.
Friday night I did that. So yeah, maybe some variety, but I knew I didn't have to think about what the route was going to be, because I made the route up on the Friday night and then came back and I felt like, oh, actually I nearly rolled my ankle on a curb. All these things to just minimise the risk.
Yeah.
So maybe a few more things in terms of route planning that would have mitigated boredom, but ultimately we set it up that way so that we could make a video about it.
I guess as well, were you to do it again for any other purpose than filming it, you would not have to worry about those external things like making sure you got X part on film, all that kind of fluff that goes along with sort of documenting this stuff. So if you were to do it again, you'd probably think, well, I'd rather not have all that crap going on as well, presumably.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
There's some company involved in that, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, if I was to do it again, it would have been nice to have the usual support crew there, but they were otherwise occupied. Aaron was overseas. Jonny was in you were in Poole at the time, weren't you?
Yes.
So
was I? Yeah. Somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, the company I had with Jacob and Ed was fantastic, and we got progressively more and more silly as time went on. So
as usual.
In short, no, wouldn't change a thing.
A few questions along that line, so I'll skip by them. Our friend Call of Cambro Conversations. Cam's Conversation? What was this?
You were right the first time. Just back yourself. Yeah.
Forget it. Call Cambro anyway. Where does it rank versus other challenges in terms of difficulty?
With the double being the hardest, next toughest is probably
Nevis.
No, it depends. I mean, how are we defining hard? How are we quantifying hard?
This is really
in an endurance context or a 505? Because I mean, I've never peaked out at hardness. Wording. What peaked out at hardness? Good grief.
Hey.
Dear. Right, Fergus.
Take a breath.
Think, yeah. Peak toughness on the sub 5 minute mile was achieved. I was absolutely physiologically destroyed.
Nearly killed.
Throwing up and on the floor for 30
end.
minutes. Yeah, that was as close to
That's
God.
Hilarious.
In terms of physical.
From my perspective.
I put myself in purgatory, it seems. I mean, that was peak toughness difficulty, but very different in terms of endurance. We'll just put it in the category of endurance.
Frame it in endurance.
So I mean, I'd even say the sub 6 hours 60k after the 600 kilo total was harder.
I'm going to go out on a limb here.
I don't want to say it was easy, but I'd experienced all of the things that I needed to experience ahead of time, so that they weren't surprises which is essentially what the challenge is designed to do for those that haven't necessarily yet experienced those surprises. But the merit of the challenge is it's giving you the opportunity in an accessible way to experience those things and therefore overcome them and be better for it, to therefore carry them into the things that you do next. But given that through the things that we've taken on over the years, I am already equipped with that toolbox, I was tired. It was miserable getting out of bed.
Yeah.
But I've got out of bed feeling pretty miserable to get up to a Monroe at 3 a.m. with you before.
Having already done that 10,000 times before.
Yeah.
Well,
so, but not to trivialise it in any way.
That's what I was going to say. Going out on a limb, don't want to put words in your mouth. It doesn't seem to me like it was a challenge that physically overwhelmed you in any way. It seems more like actually this was a challenge in structural management.
And bullshit tolerance.
Yeah, fair. Okay, Cole's got a few other questions. Some of them you've actually, I'll skip by and we'll just grab out the ones that might be a bit more useful here. What content did you consume during it? And what he's driving at here is probably, did you have an opportunity to kind of zone out and listen to podcasts and things? That's not something you normally do, but you might have been inclined perhaps to think, well, this is going on. I don't need to find myself within this. I'm just going to chill out and zone out and listen to.
So the only media I consumed was the Scotland-England game.
Okay.
And
so each run you did sans headphones as usual?
No, nothing. Didn't have headphones on once. Okay. And Mark Lewis's 4x4x48 video, because he's very entertaining and we just want to see how he'd put his video together. Okay. So me and Ed watched it when we were thinking about how we were going to put our edit together.
Fair.
And other than that, I was kind of working at my laptop and updating my Strava. I wasn't actually putting it on Instagram because I was a little bit injured going into this, so didn't want to say I was going to do it, and then
keep it in the back pocket.
Sorry, I've actually, my lower back's not going to let me do it, and then build up a whole hype train for nothing. So I just kind of did it quietly in the background. So there was no real social media obligation, which was nice actually. I had a new routine in the city centre in a nice part of the world in a lovely apartment we rented for it, with some good lads around me, enjoying Swedish pastries, and going for a run every once in a while.
Seems fair. Did you do all that in your Vivo Barefoots? Asks.
No, I don't do any road running in Vivo Barefoots, as I've always made very clear, as clear as I can anyway, on social media outlets. I wear
clear enough for this
I wear
chap.
Vivos for all lifting, all day-to-day stuff. I'm in them now. And trail running, trail walking, hill walking.
What did you wear then?
I wore Ultra Taurins, I believe. So for reference, road running, I will wear a combination of Ultra Escalantes, Taurins, and then Saucony Endorphin Pros, and then I have a pair of Saucony Endorphin Speeds for sort of tempo and sub-threshold work if I'm triathlon specific. But I hate the Sauconys. They are just the lesser of several evils. They feel too narrow, which is why I wear the Ultras. I wear the Ultras for road running because the cushioning allows my perception of fatigue over time.
They're still neutral, aren't they?
Neutral and open toe box. Open toe box is the main thing. But essentially, the cushioning is a crutch. My feet would be the weakest link in my chain, and I essentially have reaped all the rewards that I feel are necessary in terms of strengthening my ankle and foot by wearing Vivos daily and using them for long dog walks, hill walks, etc., without the need to be running in them day to day. If somebody wants to run in them day to day because it feels great, it's more evolutionary natural, whatever spin you want to put on it, then great. But it's up to you. There's benefits to be had. How much you want to extrapolate those benefits out into your lifestyle is entirely up to you. I don't do road running in Vivos. I wear other shoes for that, so hopefully that covers the question. But I'm obviously a huge advocate for Vivos, obviously. But yeah, just by wearing a pair for up to 6 months can improve your foot strength by up to 60%, and you'll feel much better around your ankle structure and your feet for your running in shoes that are not good for your feet by doing so. So I recommend everybody to have a pair for certain activities because that gives you the benefits without having to think that you need to convert to a born-to-run lifestyle and wear Vibram 5 fingers everywhere you go because you will get weird looks. So, yeah.
That's fair. Okay, what part of the challenge did you find the hardest? So, where was the bite point? There must have been certain points during that.
Night 3, overnight, I was very tired and rough. You can see it in the video. It was pretty groggy and puffy and it felt dry. Actually, so specifically, my body temperature got so hot overnight on the last night. Was it night 4? the last night of sleep, whenever that was.
Why do you think that was?
Just cumulative fatigue, cumulative sleep deprivation, and
so I'm going to jump forward where we're talking about. There's a question of flick forward here.
So just on that, I was sweating a lot and sleeping terribly, so the tiredness really felt like it punched me in the face.
So that's the last question was from Alfie Downey. This one from Jack Boy Shep. When I did the 4x4x96, I struggled for sleep regulation. Do you have tips to improve?
Sleep regulation. I don't know exactly what that means in terms of.
I'm guessing what Jackie Boy is suggesting is that he found he was just getting sort of sporadic and not particularly useful sleep.
So that's where my strategy ahead of time was: don't sleep during the day. Don't treat it as, because sleep isn't as simple as time accumulated. I think that's the sort of the myth that's been perpetuated a little bit recently, but it's more how is your sleep formulated is more important than just the bank balance of it, essentially.
Yeah.
That's why jet lag isn't just have a 12-hour sleep and you feel great again. It's a bit more complex than that, because there's biology going on that kind of is telling your body to feel a certain way at certain times and things. So my strategy was sleep overnight when it is dark and stay awake during the day. And my only caffeine the entire time was the lattes. That was it. Didn't have any caffeine whatsoever.
What you were trying to do was kind of keep your sleep pattern as normal as possible.
Correct.
As simple as that.
Correct.
Which might have been something that Jackie Boy wasn't. We were completely guessing.
Yeah, we are.
It's interesting to hear, because I think people probably think that they should do a run, then take 90 minutes sleep, and then kind of reset and go again, and they break it down into 48 bite-sized chunks.
Biphasic.
Yeah, when in actual fact, and for me it felt like the right choice, and sounds like for you it was the right choice, actually trying to just sort of live your life, address that kind of night and day, and keep in contact with that circadian rhythm as much as possible. Know that your sleep over time, as you've discussed a moment ago, is going to break up a little bit, and you're going to end up a little bit behind. Sounds like you had a good strategy. So there's another.
The only thing I will add is when I inadvertently fell asleep on the sofa in an 9 p.m. till 11:30 p.m. section, I felt dreadful going out for that midnight run. So when it was unplanned and non-strategized and unregulated, to use Jackie Boy's language, that made me feel pretty rough, and I didn't enjoy that run much at all.
So stick to your plan then.
Stick to the plan, son.
How did your support crew and cameraman cope? So that's a good question. I'd like to hear the answer to that, because unusually I wasn't there, and the chaps that were there were doing very new things for them. So how did they get on?
So we had Jacob, who was the man behind the camera, and then we had Ed, who was essentially the producer, shall we say, and he was essentially keeping on top of what we wanted to achieve from the endeavour as a whole.
Production perspective.
So Ed was on my timeline the whole way through. Hero, tip of the hat.
Well done,
Ed. Tip of the beanie, as it were, for Johnny. And Jacob was coming and going and wasn't with us overnight. So I had a little Sony camera. We had the GoPro, and then we had the big boy cameras that Jacob was bringing to and from. Well, it wasn't actually. They stayed there, but Jacob was coming to and from and then operating them once he was there. Ed was surprised at how he didn't get as delirious as he expected to, but he was essentially on the same sleep and wake cycle as I was, but without the physical demand. But I can imagine the challenge with that was in the night sections when he was just waiting for me to get back. That must have been really tough to stay awake because he wasn't out running.
So.
And he often found that he was just doom scrolling on TikTok and just laughing his way to awakeness, because he just didn't have any brain power to really do anything else. But he also knew that if he went back to bed, it'd shaft him for filming me as I came in. So I want a debt of gratitude to those guys. Huge shift. It was really good fun to bring it together, and we problem solved as we went. But the support crew at the double, for example, were way more loopy and delirious come Sunday afternoon.
We were off our faces with sleep deprivation.
Yeah, you really were. You really were. So again, it just goes to show the start and end, as you would in a conventional ultra, is significantly more demanding in that sense, in the same way that the deliriousness that Ed experienced was nothing like the deliriousness that you experienced. So from both a physical, a psychological, and a sleep deprivation manifestation point of view, having the breaks and having the sleep made this less insane inducing than the double.
Yep, makes sense. Josh Dunn would like to know if there's any safety concerns with the late night runs.
There would be in other situations, so I don't want to send anyone out foolishly into the dark of the night, but we chose a spot that was well lit at all times, so I never needed a head torch. So tactical decision on where we put the accommodation and where we filmed it all, so no safety concerns. There were some students out on Fridays and Saturdays, which were probably quite shocked to see me running at 4 a.m. as they were coming home from nightclubs. And there was definitely a Saturday morning inner reflections from a group of girls as I was the jogger that was running as the birds were coming up and they were going home. And I have been there before. As leaving a 5 a.m. license in Edinburgh and seeing some sinewy middle-aged man dropping me, and I just think, oh goodness no, as the birds chirp. And I think I felt strangely proud to have induced that moment of panic in them, knowing that it's just a part of the life cycle.
But I would take a moment, and you did, just to underline, if you're looking to mimic this or do things through the night, make sure you've got that shit covered. Don't go out running about in places you don't know, etc., etc. Nutrition strategy we've kind of covered, so I think we can jump across that unless you've got anything you want to add while it's there, but not really.
No, not really. Other than eat consistently, make sure you balance the books in terms of calorie expenditure. Don't do anything new. Don't have any huge meals, and just make sure you're well prepared and well stocked. So you don't need to be going to and from the supermarkets or anything. Fair.
2 related questions. Stupots07 asks, how's the gooch? And I'll just frame it again with Supertramp_Bryce wants to know, how did you manage chafe with the constant warming up, cooling down, sharing, etc.?
Yes.
So I guess that's the same question framed in different ways. How's your gooch, and was there a lot of chafing issues that you had to kind of administrate around?
So my gooch is in a ever-evolving state of disarray, shall we say, as it's had
that's a lifestyle issue for
a
you,
rather disrespectful couple of years on the bike, and with general chafing from volume. And the problem with having strength capacity means that my thighs are slightly larger, so chafing between the legs is a problem for me. Chamois cream normally solves it. Inner lining on shorts normally solves it. However, I ran out of chamois cream on day 1.
Did you?
Yeah, I did, because essentially in the chaos of knowing that the chaos of the month to come, getting prepared for this, getting prepared for the day I had in London, and getting packed and everything for going to and from Australia and America, I just forgot to reorder. So actually, to go back to an earlier question, would I do anything differently? I would have reordered chamois cream and applied it liberally. So for anyone wondering, maintaining chafing, managing chafing, inner lining on shorts and chamois cream, that normally keeps me golden. And a bike fitting, if you're on a bike, make sure that your bike fits you, otherwise you will chafe no matter how much frictionlessness you apply to the area. So that is that. But the gooch is healed. It's in a good state, but it's also aware at this point that I think that it knows that the peppering is not yet over, as there is a summer of triathlon training to come. So I would like to involve you all in my apology.
I'd like to involve you all in my gooch. That's what you're about to say.
To my taint? Is that what people
That's what the Americans call it. For any
my
overseas
perineum
listeners here, we're talking about the taint, the gooch, the perineum.
An ode to my perineum. Oh dear. No. You've said it.
I did. I went there.
Oh goodness.
But we've established that you regularly abuse your own.
Don't make it worse. No, move on to the next question. That wasn't an open invitation for more.
That bombshell. Actually, we're roughly at the end of it. I suppose we've got a kind of a
finishing on that one.
Yeah, I think we should. I think that's a brilliant moment to finish on.
Okay.
But I guess from me, question from me, because we do know, and we did know before this, conceptually we knew before this started, that you weren't looking at a new ultra. This wasn't a kind of a stretch in your current catalogue. Oh, can I do this particular ultra? This was very, very different. Do you think there's anything you've learnt from this Goggins ×2, this 96 4x4x96 that you've done, that you can now take and apply to something like an ultra? Because I know there actually turned out to be very different challenges, but there might be some crossover there. You think, actually, that's something I learned from this that I could take across, and might be admin related, might not be. What do you think?
I think it just reinforces the importance of planning and creating structures around what you expect rather than just figuring out as you go. I think far too many people just think they'll be able to think on their feet when they're in this situation, but fatigue, stress, timings, etc. all come into play. So the more you can reduce friction around things, that's a message that will never be hammered home enough. And that did exactly this. I think from a personal point of view, it made me consider how much I enjoy the simplicity of a coffee and a pastry in Edinburgh early morning with the dogs. So that's something that I'll do more of, because being out where we are without having that easily accessible in walking distance means that we've probably neglected it as a household. So that's not ultra related, but there you go. And I think faith in when you feel utterly, utterly dreadful in terms of sleep deprivation and perception of tiredness, if you just get moving, you'll figure it out. I think that's been reinforced as well.
Yeah, good.
But also it's just more time and attention in the dark, doing these things, suffering through the sort of misery and drudgery of it, and more money in the bank when it comes to the next time that I have to get my head down and suffer through something. I can reflect on this and think, oh yeah, you got through that. Sets and reps. Yep. That's all it is.
Excellent. Well, that's us at the end of some questions. There are a few in there that which either made no sense whatsoever, so thanks for those, or were repeats. So if your question didn't get asked, it's not because it wasn't a good question, or it might be because it was a terrible question. It might also be because it had been asked in a different way by somebody else. So thanks for all of them. And I'm speaking to your audience here, really, to a degree. Thanks for all the questions and all the interest and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you from my end as well. And do make sure to watch the video of the event itself on my YouTube channel. And at the point that this will have come out... When is this coming out? Friday. It's coming out on Friday. So on this Sunday, if you're listening on the day it's come out, which some of you might not be, on Sunday the 12th, 8th today, 9th, 10th.
Yeah,
12th, 11th, Sunday 11th. Johnny's checking. Sorry, everyone. I think it's 11th. Oh shit, it's 12th.
12th. 3 times I said it.
You did. Yeah, there's receipts for that, everybody listening. On the 12th, I will be putting up a debrief video from my perspective, as well as my recommendations from a more practical point of view on how you can nail the 4x4x48 if you'd ever like to give it a go yourself. So do please tune into that. And tune into the next episode of the podcast where we're going to do a Una reverse on me asking the questions about Johnny's experience.
Yes.
Covering 250 kilometers in the Arctic Circle, which sounds a lot more exciting than running 4 miles every 4 hours for 4 days around the same bloody,
let's say, different
park in Edinburgh.
But more exciting, just a different challenge.
You probably had some Swedish pastries as well.
I had no pastries. I can tell you that.
That was your first mistake.
0 pastries were available.
Okay, we'll cover this. We'll cover this in the next podcast. Thank you, everyone. Do all the podcasty stuff. Follow, subscribe, share with a friend. Say, wow, fantastic, phenomenal. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, in the review section, check us out on YouTube, check out the website, and let us know how you get on listening to this over social media. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you, goodbye.